Namaskaram friends. In our first video, we have explained why there is a need for computing effective representation of various castes among the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes in Karnataka, and how the Honorable Supreme Court has laid down a very strict rule. It's a very strict rule that the effective representation test defined by only Group A and Group B should be met when subcategorization orders are passed. Now, my friends, this is a very important test because see, it is very logical that if a subcaste is not represented in Group A and Group B services, their voice will not be heard in the administration. That's what the Supreme Court judges told in the Indra Sahani case. And today, that is the same idea which we need to test whether certain subcastes have an effective voice in administration. So for that we have to see whether there is sufficient representation for these groups in Group A and Group B services. Now let us see what the Nagmohan Das committee did regarding this data. So I will now directly jump to the data points which are there in my report. So we have enclosed all these data points in the report which we are taking from the Nagmohan Das committee. So in the Nagmohan Das committee, one good thing is that they have given the split up of Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D jobs. So this is very clearly mentioned. So that is given in page number 188. You can see this 188 to page number 193. So this is the page numbers where the numbers are given. But my friends, here you can see the numbers are given. So the first, it starts with that Nagmohan Das committee says that this top 10 caste occupy maximum number of jobs. That is Valaya caste has 43,962 jobs totally. Then this column gives you the A group, B group, C group, D group. Similarly, the Madiga group, Banjara group, Bovi, Chalavadi, they are Bambi, Beda Jingama, Kurama, Samagara, Adi Dravida. These are the top 10 castes which have got the maximum government jobs. Now, the next is the next 28 castes which have the medium representation in the government. So, these are all absolute numbers. Okay. These are absolute numbers. And then you have the next 51 castes which have a very minimum number of representation, and finally we have certain castes which have zero. Like for example, you have this caste, there is no voice for this caste in the government, like Bindla, Chandala, Kemparis. So now at a moment you may assume that this is fine, this kind of an absolute number analysis works out, but my friend, you need to understand that the number of jobs should be compared with the population. Like it is something like the GDP and the per capita GDP. If you compare, if you tell GDP alone, the country is doing very well. Then, and if you do not compute the per capita GDP, then there will be a lot of blocks where poverty will be there. So a lot of people will be still poor. So this not comparing, Nagmohan Das committee's report not comparing the representation in Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D with the population percentage of every group is a serious bottleneck, and that leads us to a condition which results in a very different results from what we actually have to get. Because see, we have to finally categorize these groups into a backward, more backward, and then forward groups among the scheduled caste. So just by absolute number, we can't tell that certain groups are forward. And then, my friends, Nagmohan Das committee has not given us any details of how this effective representation has been computed for every caste. So this is again a serious problem. So I'm now going to do a small exercise and show you how we have computed this effective representation in our report. For that, I just show you a formula which we have adapted, a slightly different formula, and the same formula also. Both exhibits we have given. So I'll now go to the Janardhan committee reports. My friend, this is the Janardhan committee report. Janardhan committee report, you can see. So this is the committee report which is there. You can see that. So you can see this. So I'm just moving this. So this is how they compute the representation in Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D in Janardhan report. So they took the various castes, Group A percentage, they found out the share in the Group A. So Arundhati R, they found out all the shares. Okay. Then Group B, they found out the share. Group C, they found out the share. Group D, they found out the share. And then for the total employment also they found out the share. And then they took the population, that is somewhere in the population percentage in 19. So they found out the variation. Phi is equal to job share, that is 4, minus that is the population. So if you see that, you will see that. So if you move that, you will see that that is the population, 19, you can see that. 19 is the population, percentage with total SCs. So here you can see that variation 4 minus 19 divided by 19. That means that this is actually a metric which shows that if there is a gap, what percentage of that gap is to that population. So this actually shows the concentration of domination. Like for example, if a group is very heavily represented, then this will be very high. This will be positive because see, job share is much higher than the population, and the gap is as a percentage of population is very high. Like if it is 25%, if the gap is 25% of the population, that is quite a big number. Okay, so this is a very, very effective indicator of what is the relative concentration or domination of a group. This is a very popular metric used in various studies, inequality studies, and that is what is used in Janardhan committee's report. But unfortunately, my friend, Nag Mohan Das committee has not published any such report, any such analysis on how they got to the effective representation test. So now here we have taken this formula, we have slightly modified this. We have taken the gap. First we have computed the gap, we computed the percentage from the group A, and then what is the deviation from the population. Then the second exhibit also we have computed the exact Janardhan committee exhibit, but we are going to use mostly the deviation part, which I am going to show you now. This is I am a very ordinary person. God has given me the ability to analyze data, my friends, but I have done this work single-handedly. The other governments can do it much easier than me. I am a very ordinary person. Okay, but that is the entire thing, my friend. So when I can do this, governments can surely do it. See, whatever data I am presenting it to you is only for reference, and I know that the governments have much more resources than what I can do and then what I have. So now I will take you to the exhibit. So you can see this here. So this is exhibit A, which gives you all the details of effective representation of group A, group B of various castes at the population percentages. So you can see that group A, group B, group C, group D population. So you may ask me, where did I get this data from? So that is the first question you will raise this. My friend, this is there in the Nag Mohan Das committee report itself. So I will show you that this data, I have taken it exactly from here. So you can see that this is the data. There is no change in the data. We have extracted this data and then we have fed it into the Excel sheets. So it's the same data exactly from the Nag Mohan Das committee. Also the population figures. Population figures also I have taken from Nag Mohan Das committee, which is given in 322. You can see this 323. It is given in that. Also, I have a serious issue of this Adi Andhra, Adi Dravida, Adi Karnataka, which they show it at such a low numbers. But okay, I am accepting these numbers and then I am taking it. So let us see what analysis we will get out of this. Okay, because see, at the end we have to accept some numbers. I have been telling that we have to use 2011 census data, but now they are telling that this data we have to use. Okay, we will use it. But let us see whether this Nag Mohan Das has really done the right thing. Committee has done the right thing when doing any analysis. My friends, the first thing is that I'll just briefly tell you how we have carried out the analysis. The thing is that, see, you can see Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D population. So then we have the total employees percentage. Total employees percentage we calculated by 43962 divided by the total of this, all these columns. So you will get that total 30.37% of the total employees in entire Karnataka belongs to Holaya caste. So you can see that that's a massive number. Their population is 23.33. So the deviation is 23.33. Deviation in total employment percentage is 7.05. That is, if there is a negative number, it means that they are overrepresented. That is, they are more than the population. The total employment is more than the population, because we are taking population percentage minus total employees. Okay. Then Group A, again you can see 2525 divided by the total of Group A. So that is 36.66%. That is also very massive. So you can see that if you subtract this from the population, you will get 13.33. Similarly for Group B, it is 33.36 minus 10.03. Now we compute a composite index. So as per the Supreme Court guidelines, see, I can consider only Group A because that is the real strategic position. But what I thought was, okay, we will consider even the Group A, we will give a weightage of 50% here, then 25% to Group B, and also total employment also will give 25%, because we will reduce the significance of the total employment representation. So I computed, so I put a weight on this 3, that is total deviation in total employment, deviation in Group A, deviation in Group B, and then computed the composite index. So my friend, more the deviation, negative deviation, more the forward it is. So because it has a higher representation in the government services. That is what. So the gap also is the dominance is concentrated. So because with respect to the population, it has a very high representation. They are represented more than their population. See, a negative number indicates that they are represented more than their population. That is, they are adequately represented, my friend. So that is the entire thing. They have more proportion in the government. Okay, so they are not underrepresented. They don't require any support. They are actually taking away the pie. Now let us, when you compute this, let us see the last caste, which has the lowest one. Which is it? You may be guessing it, because many people tell that it is the Madhika caste. Madhika caste, they are 6.24% less represented. So you can see, tell that. So this data clearly shows the gap. One caste has high representation more than their population, another caste, it doesn't have equivalent to their population, or they are less represented. So the positive figures here indicate that they are less represented than their population, and then negative figures indicate they are more represented than their population. So my friend, we took this data and then we have analyzed that the difference between Holaya and Madhika, that is the Holaya group and then the Madhika group, that is, this is how much? They are 9.36% more represented, minus it is. They are more, they have a higher representation than their population. If you remember that, minus means they have higher representation than their population. So if you go to the Supreme Court, they'll ask whether this caste really require reservation. That is what they will question. So they have higher representation than their population. So, but there are groups like Madhikas which have lower representation. And this is effective representation, my friends, because I have not taken total employees alone. I have given more weightage to Group A, Group B. So the voice of the Madhikas is not there in the administration as compared to the voice of the Holaya. So that is clearly coming out from this analysis. Now, what we did was we split this in the composite index. So we use this, and then the composite index greater than 0.0212, that is, we considered this as more backward. Backward index minus 0.0019 to 0.02120, because this is all statistical analysis we have done, that are considered as backward. And forward group are negative, very high negative numbers, less than minus 0.00192. So this is what is the results which we are getting. Now my friends, let us see what Nagmohan Das has done with this. So you will clearly understand that Nagmohan Das committee has not looked into this, my friends. The Honorable Justice should have done all this analysis. So unfortunately we don't see anything like that being done. The first exhibit, my friends, I want to show you is the it's a tragedy. It is the excluded caste. That is the Adi Andhra, Adi Karnataka, Adi Dravida. My friends, the Adi Andhra, Adi Karnataka, Adi Dravida caste are not even included in any subcategorization. Category A, B, C. There are three categories. A is supposed to be the more backward, B is supposed to be backward, C is supposed to be the forward group. But these three groups are not there in any place. So this is a very big problem, because when we compute the index, what we get is they are really backward. They are more backward. They have very little representation in group A. You can see the group A percentage representation of Adi Andhra, 0.01%, 0.60%. Adi Dravida is 0.90%. So these fellows are not the threat. Okay, so they have to understand that these groups are not the threat for anyone. Actually, these groups are the most depressed groups. And rightly, they have to be categorized as more backward. But unfortunately, the Nagmohan Das Commission doesn't even include them. So this is completely unfair, because the Commission cannot ask this Adi Andhra, Adi Karnataka, Adi Dravida groups to go and join the Holaya and Madiga group. The Holaya group especially, my God, the Holaya group has the highest jobs. They have the highest concentration. There is a domination. So this group is highly developed. So how can the Adi Karnataka groups take a caste certificate of Holaya group and then move there? Will they be able to compete with them? So that is my first question. They will never be able to compete with them, and that will lead to a serious problem. See, it may be politically advantageous, but when it comes to real representational issue, there will be a problem, my dear friend. There will be a problem. So we have to be considering all these things. So this is the first exhibit which I am showing you, which is a problematic thing, and I request the government to include back this communities in the more backward category, that is the group A category. All these three categories should come as more backward. So because it's very clearly coming that they are not represented well. It will be unfair if you do not take this caste into the more backward community, because see, all the group A percentage, group B percentage is negligible, less than 1% they have. You can see that very well. So where do they have representation? Now coming to the exhibit C. This is supposed to be the more backward class, my dear friends. My backward class, this is the Madiga group, which is categorized in Nagmohan Das committee. Now my friends, this is exhibit C, which is actually giving you all the list of caste which are there in group A subcategory. Group A subcategory of the subcategorization order, which is actually the Madiga group. Madiga group, which is considered to be the more backward class group. That is the idea. Now my friends, they have included many castes in this. So these are all the castes which have been included. Samagara, Dor, Samban. So these are all the castes. So when we did the analysis, we got something which is very, very surprising, which I want to tell you. See, this is the more backward class group. So groups like Madiga, which are very high deviation from the population, they have very less represented. You can see that here, group A percentage 16.91%, population is 26.17%. That is like less than, like it's very, very huge gap of 10% gap. If you see group B percentage 17.48, a massive gap in group A and group B, my friend. But you see Samagaras, my friend, Samagaras have a population of just 76,000, but they have 2.09% in group A. That's a very, very high percentage compared to their population. So similarly, Dor 35,480. So this may be small, population, but they relative to the population, they have a good representation in Group A and Group B. Now this is where the problem comes, because Justice Nagmohan Das Commission, what he considered was, he put all the smaller caste in more backward. So he felt that if a caste is a small caste, they cannot compete with the larger group, so you have to put. But unfortunately, my friends, if you put that logic, then the Brahmin caste, which is the smallest caste in this country, that is 3 to 4%, so they have to be considered as backward. Okay, this is where the fundamental mistake which Justice Nagmohan Das Commission has done, because they have not considered the percentage representation in Group A and Group B with respect to the population. A very, very serious issue which they have deviated from. And now if you see Samagaras and Dor, they have a very good representation in the government, so with respect to their population, so they cannot be in more backward caste, that is in the Madhika caste. They have to be put in the forward caste. Now my friends, there are other castes like Samban, Halsar, Kemparis, Chandalas. This is okay, there is some deviation, they can be considered as backward, but they have been put as more backward. That is fine, that the government can see, tweak it, whatever they want, but there is no big deviation in that. But if some forward caste is there put in a more backward caste, I am telling you, the impact will be very huge. After probably 10 years, you will see that almost all the representation of the Madhikas will be taken over by these two groups. So putting these two groups along with the more backward class is very dangerous. So the first objection in this Nagmohan Das committee report is that see, they have not really looked into how much forward groups are there in every backward class group. So this is the first analysis which we are doing, my friends. So now let us go to, so the green color ones are fine. We are okay with these green color ones, so they are rightly classified. Yellow color ones, if the government wants, they can reclassify or they may leave it. We don't. But these red color ones have to be necessarily moved to forward. This is a very serious problem, because if you include them, you will see the impact of this after some time, because that will result in a serious issue. Now let us come to the next one, Exhibit D. Exhibit D, this is the right group. My friends, almost all analysis, any kind of analysis if you do, you will get only one result which shows that the Holaya caste in Karnataka is the most dominant in administration. Let us take Group A. Group A, you see the representation is 36.66%, population is 23.33%. Now again, Group B is 33.36%, population is 23.33. So again, if you see, if we put the composite index, they have the topmost, they have the highest representation, but still they figure in the backward classes, not the more backward classes after the Madhika. So this is a serious issue. So all these castes like Chalavadi, Balagai, Mala, Mundal, Mahar, Malasale, so they actually are forward caste, and some of them may be, because if there are small castes like this Mala, Hanai, they may be considered as backward. But these large groups like Holaya and the first 2-3 groups, especially the first two, Holaya, Chalavadi, Chennaiya, that group is really well represented. So whether we should put it in backward or, see, these are all political decisions, but our analysis shows that these groups are not backward. Indeed, they are the most dominant in administration. They occupy a large segment of the government jobs in Group A, Group B, and then they have to be considered as forward groups, because there is already a forward group, Group C. We will come to that now, where the real problems you will see. Now Exhibit E, my friends, will give you the list of Group E, okay, where they have literally put all the residuary cash which are not there in Group A and Group B, just dump them out completely. Now some of the things, like for example Beda Jangama, see, this is a very small population, 1.44, but you look at their representation is gradually increased year on year. Okay, so they have a good representation when you compare it with the population. Okay, so they have a positive representation in the population, and then As a result of this, so they are rightly put as forward. Korama, Korava, Koravar, so all this caste, Bangi, so they are all these are all okay. We are fine with this. So I am not worried much. So then there is a set of yellow color caste which are also fine. But now, my friends, the last group, which actually when you do an analysis, you will get a very, very surprising analysis that some of the groups which they tell that they are forward or the touchable caste may not be completely well represented in the government. That is one of the findings, very serious findings which we have. Like for example, if you see especially the Bovi, Vadar, so this community has a very high underrepresentation in the government. So we got something like 3.43, next only to the Madigas. So so the others, I leave it to the things, but here this Bovi is, I really consider that there is a need for moving them to either more backward or backward class. They are actually not the forward group. So that is what the data is showing. However, see, they will compute indices based on many other metrics, but the representational metrics is showing this. Representational metrics doesn't show that they are forward caste. The same with Banjaras also, but Banjaras, the value is not very high. So I still feel that okay, if the government wants to include them in the forward caste, it's okay. But Bovis, there is a problem. So there appears to be a serious issue in that. So my friends, with that, I have shown you the gist of what we wanted to tell in this report. We are sharing this report in detail to you. See, if there is some mistake, please forgive me, because I am a single person and then I don't have many people assisting me, so there can be mistakes. I know that there will be mistakes, and then I have done it with a lot of care, checking it multiple times, but still human error, you cannot tell it. But what I am telling you is that, see, this is just a method through which the government can compute all these things. They have bigger machineries than what I have. They have budgets, they have consultants, they have big experts working on all this. So they should compute all these things and present it before the people, so that they understand why subcategorization is done. Unfortunately, my friends, today all these things are not done. So now, how will the Honorable Court uphold such a thing which is not adhering to the guidelines of the Supreme Court is my question. So I seriously feel that this thing needs to be relooked into, and then the effective representation part has to be computed, and then, my friends, like then only we will get the right set of groups which have to be included in the more backward or backward groups. So simply telling that this group has to go here, that group has to go here, that is something which is totally unacceptable, and we should not encourage such thing, because see, the entire aspect of subcategorization is to help people who need a hand holding. So we need to help them come up. Okay, so that is the entire idea. With that, my friend, I hope that this report is useful to you, and I hope that any suggestions also you post that to us. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.